Welcome to this second live stream from In 28 Minutes. I'm really delighted to have you here. If you are in India, good morning. And if you are in Europe, probably you are not still awake, so you might not be joining this session from Europe, most probably. And if you are in the US, then it's, I guess, good night, right? So it should be pretty late in the US. If you are in Australia or any of the oceanic regions, then probably I should say good afternoon or good evening. Welcome to you wherever you are around the world. The goal of this specific live stream is to answer any questions that you have around the latest course that we have released. Last week, we released this course, which is titled Master Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6 with Java. And this, I hope, is a course that and this I hope is a course that will help you. Like, the goal of this course actually is, let's say you know Java. The only prerequisite that this course assumes is that you know Java really well. It expects you to know core Java. You are not expected to know any of the advanced things, like, for example, JSP, servlets, or Java EE or Jakarta EE. That's not the expectation. The only thing which is a prerequisite is that you understand Java. You are good at Java programming. That's a prerequisite for this course. And the goal of this course is to take you from there and help you build a variety of applications. We want to help you build a Java application, a web application, a REST API, and also a full stack application. We're going to use Spring Boot. We're going to use Spring Framework. Obviously, Spring Framework is something you need to be really good at if you want to use Spring Boot. And the other things that we'll be making use of are Spring Data. We'll be making use of Hibernate and JPA. We'll also be learning, in this specific course, we'll also be learning React. So that's the building of the applications part. So you will get experience building three types of application: a web application, a REST API, and a full stack application. The other thing that you would also get experience with is building Docker containers, right? So today, if you look at most enterprises, they're making use of Docker, they're making use of containers. That's why in this course, we'll also learn how to build great container images and how can you run containers using those container images. And the last part, which we added into this specific course, is the cloud. Today, cloud is everywhere. Everybody is playing with either AWS or Azure or Google Cloud. And I thought it's very important for you to get an understanding of the cloud as well. And that's why what we'll do is we'll deploy some of the applications that we built during this specific course, the full stack application, the REST API. We will deploy them to AWS, Amazon Web Services. And you'll get experience with not only the fundamentals of AWS, we'll talk about why do we need the cloud, what are the advantages of cloud, why AWS. We'll also talk about the different compute services which are present in AWS as well. So the goal is to get a developer who's getting started with Java, right? You have good experience with Java. The goal of this specific course is to help you become a modern Java Spring Boot developer. So what are the things that industry expects you to know in 2023? Those are the things that we would focus on this specific course. There are a few things which are not part of this course. For example, microservices or Kubernetes. Those are things which we will not have as part of this course because I feel those are much more advanced things. So the way I see things is level 1 is Java. You need to be good at programming. Level 2 is this course, where you would learn Spring Boot, you would learn Spring Framework, you would learn JPA, Hibernate, Spring Data. You learn to build variety of applications. You will learn to build containers, and you will learn how to deploy them to the cloud. So that for me is level 2. Microservices for me is level 3. So microservices, Kubernetes, all those things would be a separate course, which we already have. It's called Master Microservices with Spring Boot and Spring Cloud. So right now, the way I'm looking at it is a Java developer with the roadmap of in 28 minutes will have 3 different courses. So let's quickly look at the roadmap. I'll go over to our website, in28minutes.com. So let me bring this up, our website, where you can also look at these roadmaps. If you go to in28minutes.com, you should see your roadmaps at the top. And over here, we have all the roadmaps related to in 28 minutes. If you are a beginner with cloud and you want to explore the 3 different clouds and get the fundamentals regarding that, we have the cloud beginner roadmap. We also have a DevOps roadmap, a AWS roadmap, Azure roadmap, a Google Cloud roadmap. The focus here is, however, the Java microservices and the full stack roadmap. If you want to become a full stack developer in Java, the things which we would recommend you to do is now just a roadmap of 3 courses. Earlier, there were a lot of courses which were part of this roadmap. I think I had about 6 to 7 courses which were in here. Now, my goal for this year was to bring it down to just 3 courses. So that's why now we just have 3 courses in this specific roadmap, right? So Java programming for complete beginners, this is to learn programming with Java. And this is the new edition, right? This is the new course which we released last week, Master Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6 with Java. And this is the course which would help you to learn almost all the basic fundamentals of Spring Framework, Spring Boot, and build a variety of applications with them. So this would be the second course you'd need to pursue. And after that, you can jump into the Spring Boot and Angular course. One important thing to remember is that the Master Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6 with Java already has full stack in it. We would be using React in there. So if you want to learn Angular as well, then you can go to the third course. If you are happy with React, then just the 2 courses, the first 2 courses would be more than sufficient for you to get started with full stack development in Java. Now, if you want to go to microservices, then there is an additional step. So if I go back to the roadmaps and scroll down, at the bottom, you would see Java microservices roadmap. And this is the Java microservices roadmap. And you'd see that this has 3 courses in it. The first one, obviously, is Java. You need to be good at Java programming. The second one is the current course that we are talking about, Master Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6 with Java. Once you complete this course, you can get into Master Microservices with Spring Boot and Spring Cloud. So this is the roadmap I'm looking at if you'd want to become a microservices developer. So learn Java, do the course to learn Spring Boot, and build variety of applications with Spring and Spring Boot, and then jump into microservices with Spring Boot and Spring Cloud. In this course, you'll also learn Kubernetes. So it would be a complete 3-step process for you to become a master, for you to learn microservices. One of the biggest challenges I saw in the last 1 year, especially in the last couple of months, I started visiting a lot of conferences. And one of the biggest challenges I see a lot of learners are facing is how to make the choice of what to learn, right? So there are so many things happening in the industry right now. How do I choose what to learn, what to focus on? So the goal of this course and these roadmaps is to give you focus. If anybody is wanting to come into the Java world, anybody wants to explore the Java world further, anybody wants to get into Spring and Spring Boot, they want to get into full stack development of microservices, I wanted a very, very simple roadmap for them. And that's the goal of this specific thing, right? So the goal was to actually make it complete, right? So make it simple and complete as well. So that was the goal. I was trying to make use of the 80-20 principle, which is what most of the times I make use of whenever I'm deciding what should be part of the course, what features should be covered in a specific video, or what features should be covered related to a specific framework or tool. I always make use of this 80-20 rule. We would want to cover the 20% features really, really well that are used 80% of the time. So yeah, that's kind of the target always, to be able to use that 80-20 rule and make sure that we make efficient use of your time, right? So whenever a lot of people think actually the investment they are making when they are purchasing a course is the money they are spending on the course. Actually, in my view, the investment you are making is your time, right? If I'm creating a 30-hour course, a 40-hour course, a 50-hour course, you might be spending, let's say, $10 or $20 on it. That's not a lot of money, especially if you are from a Western country, or if you are in a city in India. It's not a lot of money, right? But it's probably money you'd spend on a lunch or a dinner somewhere outside. But the most important investment you're making is the amount of time you're spending on this specific course. So yeah, that's basically the reason why I feel the courses should be concise, give you the most possible value in the least possible time. And that's how we structure our courses always. If you see our courses compared to other courses which are available, our courses would typically be shorter. We would want to cover all of the important features, obviously, but we also want to keep the courses short because we value your time a lot. Okay, there you go. Those are my things that I wanted to share we are trying to make the Java roadmap really, really simple. We want to just have 2 or 3 courses in the roadmap. So if you want to become a full stack developer, just the first 2 courses should be more than sufficient. If you want to learn Angular, there is a separate course. And if you want to get into microservices, we have the third course as well. So that's kind of the gist I wanted to share with you. I'm really, really happy to see the way the course is performing right now. We released this course last week, and already I see a lot of amazing reviews coming in, and I'm really, really delighted with that. So the fact that so many students are enrolling for this course, and also we are seeing some great reviews coming in. So I'm really, really happy with how this course is doing. The great thing is this course is, I think, probably the longest course that we have created until now. It's running into like 34 hours right now. And I would be releasing more content during this week, probably another 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours of content would be added in to this specific course. I'm really, really excited to see how this goes. This is probably one of the first courses which is released, which is completely making use of Spring Boot 3. So this course is entirely recorded with Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6. If you are not aware, the Spring Framework 3 and the Spring Framework 6 and Spring Boot 3 were released last week. So yeah, we wanted to ensure that we are in line with the release date. We wanted to actually be released. Our course, I wanted to release this course before Spring Boot 3 released, and we were able to get that goal by a few hours. So I was really happy to be able to release the course on time and get this course out there for you in time, in parallel with the Spring Boot 3 release. So yeah, that's awesome. Let's probably pick up some of the courses, some of the questions that you have. Let's start looking at the questions. What I'll do is I'll first start with picking up questions which are related to the course directly. And probably after that, I would get into courses which are not, I would get into questions which are not related to the course. Yep, let's get started. Rakshit is asking about Quarkus. Could you please write an article or make a video about Quarkus, comparing with Spring Boot with pros and cons of each? Yep, I think Quarkus is something which is really, really interesting, Rakshit. I am monitoring the progress of Quarkus. Obviously, you know, right? So one of the biggest challenges with the cloud and containers world is the fact that the startup time should be low, and also the amount of memory that is consumed by the application should be low. And typically, if I go a few years back, Java applications are not good at it. Typically, our startup times of a Java application, which is based on Spring Boot, or most of the other Java frameworks, the startup time is pretty long, right? Typically, if you are launching a Java application, typically it takes about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes to start up. However, that's not good enough in today's serverless and containers world, right? So that was the fact a few years back. But I think in the last few years, Java itself and Spring Boot, and also the wonderful innovations or wonderful thought leaders in this space, right? So you had Micronaut, which started the revolution of how do we actually minimize the startup time? How do we minimize the amount of memory which is consumed, right? So that's where it started, Micronaut, and then Quarkus. In the last few years, we also saw this evolution with GraalVM, right? So how do you build a native Java image, which is very, very small, which has minimum startup time. So we see all those things are going on. I think the goal there is to minimize startup time and minimize the memory footprint, right? Once you are able to minimize that, then Java might be the language which can be used for serverless applications as well. Maybe like more and more containers also will be built using Java. So that's kind of the goal. That's where these frameworks differ a little. If you ask me what is the real difference, I think Quarkus by default has less memory footprint and less like startup time. You can customize Spring Framework to get the same performance and same footprint. However, it's a little bit more effort. However, I don't see things changing a lot in the industry, right? So my opinion as of now is that Spring Boot is still the leading framework, right? Almost 75% of the projects which are starting even newly are making use of Spring Boot. Quarkus is actually coming in. A lot of people are interested in Quarkus, but it's still second by a long way. There is still a lot of gap between the usage of Spring Boot and Quarkus. And I would love to actually go ahead and create a course on Quarkus. It's just that I'm still waiting. I'm sitting on the fence with respect to creating a course on Quarkus. Probably once I feel the time is right, we might have a course on Quarkus too. Hi, Hernandez. Glad to see you in here. Long-time follower of In 28 Minutes. Hi from India. Really glad to have you here. Okay, there is a request for course on KEDA with Spring Boot. I'm not sure what KEDA is. Just do a Google for that. What's KEDA? Kubernetes event-driven autoscaling. Oh, okay. I'm not sure what it is related. I mean, I can see that it's related to autoscaling a Kubernetes cluster, but I don't know why there's a specific request for KEDA, right? So it's maybe I have to research that a little bit more. Let's pick up a question related to this specific course. Aditya Saha, the person who doesn't have proper idea about JS, then he or she will be able to pick up with the React section included in this course, or we would need to learn JS separately again. Aditya, great question. First of all, welcome. Glad to have you here. To answer your question, even if you don't have any knowledge about JavaScript, it's fine. You need to have good programming experience with Java. That's the only prerequisite. What we'll do is whenever we talk about specific JavaScript syntax, which is different from how things are done in Java, what we'll do is we'll explain that in depth. So what I typically do is I would start building the application, and whenever we see a JavaScript construct, which is little different from how things are done in Java, then I explain it a lot. So we don't really have a separate section on JavaScript as such, but the React section would actually include a lot of places wherever we think the syntax is little different, the concepts are little different, we go in depth with the concepts with respect to JavaScript. So we don't expect you to know any JavaScript at all. If you are good at Java, if you're good at object-oriented programming with Java, that's more than sufficient. We also made it easy for you because we also have a section on functional programming with Java. So a lot of beginners to Java, a lot of people who might be working with Java for a long time, but they might still be new to functional programming. So we have actually included a section on functional programming because we make use of functional programming extensively in this specific course. So so we don't expect you to have any JavaScript knowledge. Another regular at In 28 Minutes, Vasant. Vasant, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Thanks for taking the time and being in here. Congrats on the new course. Thank you. Please create a course on Java and microservices design patterns. Vasant, actually, I'm trying to simplify our courses a lot. So we will be adding design patterns, but we'll be adding them directly to our existing courses. So what I'll do is actually, we'll add a design pattern section to the Java course, and we'll have a separate design pattern section, which will be added to the Spring course, which we have launched just now. And we'll have a separate design pattern section related to microservices added to the microservices course. So one of the troubles I have right now is actually maintaining a lot of courses. We almost have 55 courses right now. Last year, actually, I brought them down to 50. And eventually, I want to actually bring them down to around 30 or maybe 35. So that's my goal, to bring down the number of courses that we are actively maintaining. And that's why what we'll do is actually add components to existing courses itself. So we will have, I can definitely say in the next few months, we will have sections on design patterns added into Java course, the new Spring course that we have created, the Spring frameworks, the course you are looking at right now, and the microservices course. Nirbhay, hi Nirbhay, glad to have you here. Could you please consider adding Redux state management to React project in this specific course? Nirbhay, thanks for the question. I'm still sitting on the fence with Redux. If I go back 4 or 5 years, then Redux had a lot of value, right? So because state management in React was really, really tough. If you needed state, you needed to go to class components and a lot of complexities associated with going there. But I think with the introduction of React hooks, state management is much more easier directly in React. And therefore, I'm sitting on the fence with respect to Redux. So if I'm convinced in the next few months that Redux is something which would add value, then probably I'll include it in the course. But as of now, I have no plans of adding Redux to the course. But thanks for the request anyway. Just know it asking me which course should we learn Java microservices with React. Just know it. Nice name. Let me show the roadmap again. I think we have the roadmap in here, right? So if you go to in 28 minutes/roadmaps, or if you go to in 28 minutes and click the roadmaps link, which is present at the top, you'd see a Java microservices roadmap and a Java full stack roadmap. I think for your question, I think I would go to the Java microservices roadmap. And yeah, probably the two courses you might be interested in are Master Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6 with Java. This would actually cover full stack. I mean, this has almost, I think, a 10-hour section on full stack with Spring Boot and React. And we have microservices separately. So this, of course, Master Microservices with Spring Boot and Spring Cloud completely focuses on microservices. So I think a combination of these two courses is what you are looking at. Probably that's what you might want to do. You might want to pick up the GitHub repositories for these two and merge them together, right? So as far as the React frontend is concerned, it does not matter if the backend is a REST API or a microservice, right? You'd send, as far as the React frontend is concerned, you just send a REST API call. The response might be coming from a REST API, which is on its own, which might be part of a monolith, or the response actually might be coming from a microservice, right? So as far as the front-end application is concerned, it's abstracted away from that. So for me, I don't see a need why I have to combine the full stack with microservices. So even if you learn full stack with REST API and if you learn microservices separately, that should be more than sufficient. At least that's my thought process. If you have any other opinions about it, I would love to hear that. Probably you might want to email me. You can send me an email at ranga@in28minutes.com, and I would love to have a conversation on that. Okay. Next, let's go over to Priyanka Gupta. Hi, Priyanka Gupta. I'm an Android developer, want to learn full stack development. Shall I go for Angular or for microservices? I think if you're planning to learn full stack development, you should go to Angular first, right? So you'd want to build a REST API, connect it with Angular, and then probably think about microservices. But that's based on the assumption that you are planning to learn full stack development, right? So for full stack development, you need to learn the front end. That's much more important than microservices. Emmanuel Kase. Hopefully I got your name right. Hi, Emmanuel. Glad to have you here. Let's go and see any other questions which are directly related to the course. Okay, I see an answer from, there was a discussion earlier on KEDA, and Life on Wheels says it's for proactive auto scaling. Horizontal HPA, what does it stand for? Horizontal, what does P stand for? A for auto scaling, H for horizontal, P, horizontal pod auto scaling. Yeah, probably that's what it is. So horizontal pod auto scaling setting auto scales based on CPU and memory cutoffs, which means CPU memory hits the cutoff threshold, the auto scaling kicks in. But with KEDA, it can look at number of messages in SQS and scale the cluster proactively. Okay, cool. That's awesome. Actually, that's something that's very, very interesting, right? You have typically horizontal, like you have vertical pod auto scaling, VPA, or what's it called, right? Vertical scaling and horizontal scaling. So you want to increase the number of nodes in the cluster when you're making use of Kubernetes, and you'd also want to increase the number of pods in a specific node. So you have both the types of auto scaling which are present, and yeah, this looks interesting, definitely. Videsh Patel is saying waiting for JavaScript and Angular. Videsh, we already have a course on Angular for Java developers. Obviously, it's not a in-depth Angular course. I don't consider myself expert on JavaScript. Neither do I consider myself an expert on React and Angular as well. I know sufficient React and Angular as a Java developer. And all my courses are tailored to Java developers who want to learn JavaScript, right? So in that sense, I would not call myself a front-end expert, but I know a lot of front-end. I mean, I would say I know a lot of JavaScript. No, that's not true. I know sufficient JavaScript to be a good front-end developer. I would not call myself an expert on JavaScript. So I don't think I'll be ever creating a course which is completely on JavaScript and Angular. Emmanuel Kase is asking, hi Ranga, long-time follower of your Udemy courses. Thank you. Glad to hear that. Considering the minor new features of Spring Boot 3, do you recommend taking this 4-hour course is worth it? I'm not sure which course you are referring to, Emmanuel. Yeah, I'm not sure which course are you referring to. You are right? So at the core, if you look at the core features of Spring Boot and Spring Framework, not a lot of things have changed in the last 3-4 years, right? The things which are changing are more on the periphery, the startup time of the application, the memory footprint. Those are the things that we are focusing on right now in the Java world. We would want to have our language to be serverless and container ready. So that's what we are looking at right now. And if you look at how we build Java applications today, I think it's really, really good. A majority of our time is spent on business logic, and that's how it should be, right? So I don't see a huge improvements in the core concepts of Spring or Spring Boot or even Java, for that matter, right? So yeah, I think if you already know Spring Boot 2, there is no reason why you need to learn Spring Boot 3 at all. Probably you just need to read a couple of articles. That should be more than sufficient. Fateh Singh Parab, does this course have React with Spring? Yep, we do have React with Spring in this specific course, right? So we have, this course covers the entire gamut, right? So it starts with Spring Boot. We talk about JPA. We build 3 applications. Like these are good. I mean, these are sufficient applications with good enough features, right? So we build a web application, we build a REST API, and we build a full stack application. And the full stack application is where we would use React. And the full stack application is again fully featured. We actually use JWT authentication. We use Spring Security for authenticating and authorizing the backend REST API. Nagesha DS is asking, hi Nagesha, glad to have you here. Hope you are safe and doing good. I am. Sorry, I'm late to the live session. No problem. I announced it really late as well. Is this course a live online course or course fee and duration? You can find links to the course right in the description of the video. So if you look at the description of this specific video, you directly look at the link for the course. I'm not sure of the exact price you would be getting it for. Probably it should be somewhere around, in Indian rupees, it should be 400, 500. It should not be expensive. Even without the sale, I think the price of the course would be like 800, 900 rupees. So it's not an expensive course at all. However, it's not a live online course. For me, like I feel I'm able to add the best value to everybody when I create video courses, and that's how it would be. I don't think I would be doing live sessions or anything of that kind. It would be completely video-based courses only. So if you see in 28 minutes anywhere, we would be standing for mostly video-based courses. And that's how it would be. Unless I'm visiting you at a conference, that would be awesome. Cool. Let's probably pick up a few more questions. Hanumant is asking, thanks for the AZ900 course. It helped me to get a certification. When can we expect other Azure certificate courses from you? Great question, Hanumant. AZ900, like I think as far as Azure is concerned, we have AZ900, DP900, and AI900. We have all the fundamental courses. We don't have AZ104. That's the course which is frequently requested from me. Right now, I don't have plans. let's see. I mean, like this year was for me a Spring Boot year because we had the Spring Boot 3 release coming up. So I wanted to create something awesome for all Java Spring developers out there, and that's this course, right? I have no idea what I would be creating next. I have a little bit of work remaining, especially with our Java course and the microservices course. There is a lot of content that I would want to add to both those courses and also the Master Spring Boot 3 course, the new course that we released. I have plans to add in a lot more content to these 3 courses. So my first goal for the first 6 months of this year is to make these 3 courses world class. Right? These are already really, really, really good. I want to make sure that I spend enough time to make these 3 really, really good before I get into the cloud and DevOps areas again. So I'll keep updating the existing cloud courses. We'll keep them really up to date, but we are not venturing into any new cloud courses in the next few months. It might change, but that's my perspective right now. Again, this is something which I keep evaluating every 3 months to 6 months timeline. So right now, my goal is to make the Java roadmap, Java Spring Boot, Spring Framework, microservices. I want to make them really, really, really good, right? So I want to make them the best offerings out there on the internet, right? So that's my goal. I mean, the Java and microservices course are really, really good, but I want to make them the best out there. So that's my goal for the next few months. So one good example was the question Vasant had on design patterns. So that's one of the things I think is missing in all these 3 courses. That's something which you would want to add in. And I would want to find out what others, I mean, I have a list of things which I think are missing. So we would want to focus on that. So cloud would take a backseat for a little while. We would not have any new courses there. I'm sorry. Nihar is asking, is there any advantage for 12 years experience who wants career in architect line in this course? Okay. I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure what the knowledge you have is. This course is not aimed at architects. This course is mainly aimed at somebody who wants to become an expert at the frameworks and the tools. Right? So you want to become really good at Spring Boot, full stack development. You want to learn the different tools which are used, Maven, Gradle, Docker, and you'd also want to get an introduction to the cloud. So that's the area that we wanted to cover during this course. So I'm not sure if you have experience with all of these. If you have experience with all of these, then probably you can skip the course. Lifeform Wheels is asking me, I've already taken the microservices course and I know Angular. Do you recommend me to take this new course? If you're planning to use React in the next project, then probably this might be interesting. But otherwise, I would recommend you to skip. Arpit, can you add a sample project section and design architecture section for apply that learn in the course? Yeah, Arpit, I mean, as I said earlier, we want to make these courses really world-class. So we will add a lot of things related to design, especially design patterns. And as you'd know, I mean, if you have done any of the 28 minutes courses, everything is a project-based thing, right? So we build a project throughout the course. It will not be just theory. So the full stack application part, you'd build a full stack application. You'll have a real front end. I mean, you'll have a working front end project. You would have a working backend REST API project. So these courses already have projects, unless you have specific needs that you'd want to elaborate on. Okay, let's see. There are questions coming in. So we are just now past the half an hour mark. So probably I'll pick up a few more questions for about 15 minutes. I'm a Java developer enough. I want to learn front-end technologies. Which technology can I choose, Angular or React? For learning the framework, should we master HTML, CSS, and JS? If you want to become a front-end full-stack developer, right? So I would think, like, you can see what I think based on what I added into this specific course, right? So in this course, I added in React. I thought a lot about it. I felt React is the one which can be popular in 5 years. This is very difficult to judge. The thing is, Angular is also really, really popular. And when it comes to technology choices, especially when things are as good as React and Angular. So I love React. I love Angular. Yeah, I think it's a difficult choice. And finally, what I decided to do was to include React in this specific course. It was a close fight. It was really, really tough to make that choice. So yeah, I think you'd not go with either. You'd not go wrong with either of them, right? So if you make the choice with Angular or React, you will not go wrong. So yeah, it's a choice you need to think about. Typically, the way I think about technology choices is based on the support I have, right? So if I would want to venture into a specific technology, I would look at people around me. If I have good support for React, then I would go with React. If I have good support for Angular, I would go with Angular. The reason is because when you're stuck, you want help. And I would go towards whichever one I can get the best help for. So that's how I typically make my technology choices, because nobody will be able to predict the future. Nobody will be able to tell, okay, this is the thing which would be popular in the future. And if somebody's really, really confident that React is going to be the one in future, then good. Probably he's an expert on React and he loves React. Okay, I guess I answered a part of the question there. The second part of the question was, for learning the framework, should we master HTML, CSS, and JS? Actually, HTML is pretty simple. CSS is pretty simple. JavaScript, if you know Java, is pretty simple as well. So you don't really need to know all those things to do this specific course. Like if you look at both our full stack courses, like the full stack with Angular and the full stack module, which is part of the Master Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6. Both these don't expect you to have any knowledge of JavaScript. They expect you to know a little bit of HTML, but that HTML almost everybody knows, right? So the basic structure of how you organize a HTML, how the tags are, those are some things which almost everybody is familiar with. So that's expected, but it's not something which is difficult to learn. Okay, I see this question coming up very, very frequently, AZ104. Krishnamurthy, thanks for coming in here. Thanks for asking the question. And sorry to disappoint you, probably not in the next few months. So yeah, probably it's not in the next few months, as I answered earlier. Does this course cover Spring Boot with Azure or GCP? Nope. This course only focuses on AWS. AWS itself was something which was complex to add in, and I don't think I'll add in Azure and Google Cloud into this course. If you're interested in Azure or Google Cloud, then probably you can check out some of our Azure Google Cloud certification courses. Right now, we don't have plans to add them in here. It might change in the future, but I don't see it happening in the next few months for sure. Megamind Place is saying, I'm facing issues learning Spring Boot. I've not gone through your course, but went through other courses. I'm not able to code properly. Any suggestion? I think the only suggestion I would say, obviously, a self-serving suggestion, do the course. Do the course. If you have any problems, email me, or you can leave a question in Udemy Q&A, and we would help you through it. I've helped a lot of Spring Boot learners learn Spring Boot. I do the course. I think that's the only suggestion I can give you. Probably you might also want to sample some of the videos related to Spring and Spring Boot from ours on YouTube if you want. Just search for Spring in 28 minutes or Spring Boot in 28 minutes, and you should see a 40-minute video introducing you to those frameworks. See if those things help. So yeah, that's. Avinash, as we have other old Spring Boot courses, which you have, shall we jump to the current one or do the old ones first? If you're starting off, if you have not started with the old courses, directly jump into the new course, right? I think this is one of the places where we had to make a difficult choice. We have a lot of Spring and Spring Boot courses. We had a separate course for Spring. We had a separate course for Spring Boot. We had a separate course for web application. We had a separate course for REST APIs. We had a separate course for full stack development. We had a separate course on Docker. We had a separate course to deploy applications to AWS, right? So I know there were a lot of courses from us, and these were courses which I built over 5 years, or actually more than that. My goal with this course was to actually use the latest ones out there, so Spring Boot 3, Spring Framework 6, and kind of bring the latest approach that we have as well. So I've learned a lot as well in these 5 years of building courses, right? So my approach of building courses has changed a lot, and it has transformed a lot, especially in the last 2 years as we went towards the cloud. a lot more. And as I went towards the different certification courses which are out there, my approach to courses also changed a lot. And I wanted something to completely represent the newest approach, the newest way to how I think we should learn technology. And that's this course, right? I wanted this to be completely replacing a lot of other earlier courses. So yeah, if you have not pursued the old course, if you have not started the old courses, then directly jump into this. So this would be the best place to start if you have not started with the old courses. However, if you have started a specific section in the old course, then I would recommend you to complete that specific section. So complete the section and then jump into the new course. Next, Rashmi is asking, can we have some integration testing samples with Spring Boot covering data from remote services as well as JPA data source? I think we already do this as part of the master unit testing with Spring Boot course. We have a separate course for that. And eventually, in the next 6 months, you would see content with, like, that course was recorded with Spring Boot 2. Eventually, this course should have that content as well. So the Spring Boot 6 with Java, Spring Boot 3, like, we would be actually adding a lot more content on unit testing and integration testing to the Master Spring Boot 3 course as well. So the recent course that we released. So yeah, we should have content in there. If you are looking at Rightnerve, then probably you can visit the springbootutorial.com. One of our great team members, Mahi, is doing a great job with maintaining that website. So you should see that, you should see Spring Boot 3 updated samples on that website. So if you go to springbootutorial.com, you should see a lot of content on unit testing and integration testing, which is already updated to Spring Boot 3. Let's move on. How good I need to be on OOPS and exception handling topic of Java to learn Spring Boot, scale 1 to 10. It's difficult to rate, right? So I think OOPS and exception handling, I would say 5 to 6 should be more than sufficient. I mean, you should be aware of those concepts. You don't need to be an expert at them. And actually, if you want to be an expert at OOPS, it's probably a 10-year exercise, right? OOPS is something which is very difficult as far as I'm concerned. Getting OOPS right? Understanding solid principles, understanding 4 principles of simple design, understanding how to use OOPS in real world projects. That's, for me, like a few years. It takes a lot of time to be really good at it. So you don't need to be an expert at OOPS, but you need to be aware of the concepts of inheritance. You need to understand what is interface. You need to understand how you can structure your Java classes. Yeah, that's kind of the understanding you need to have. Players, which of your course would you suggest to get started with Spring Boot? The course which is present in the roadmap, right? So it's Master Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6. That's the course we would recommend. Okay, I guess we'll see, like, I'll take a couple of more questions. We are running into 43 minutes right now. So probably I'll pick up a couple more questions if you have any, and then probably we'll wind up, right? So Nest.js, I don't have any plans on any just JavaScript courses. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I think I've covered in most of the questions which are present in here. If you have any other questions, do post them in here. Probably I'll cover them in a future live stream, which we do. But as far as now, I think I'm really, really happy to see the response that the course is getting. I'm really, really delighted to see that a lot of learners will be benefiting from this amazing course. Right? I have no qualms in saying that this is the best Spring Boot course out there. Right? So I feel like the amount of effort which we put in, and also like the feeling that I had when I was editing this course was amazing. I felt this was one of the best courses out there. And the way we actually handled the Spring Framework section, I think that's now, like, earlier, the Kubernetes section in a lot of courses was my favorite sections. But now it's replaced by the Spring Framework section of this specific course. I think the first 3 sections of this course on Spring Framework are really, really awesome. I mean, I know I'm talking about something which I created, but personally, I felt really, really great about creating those 3 sections. And I hope you feel that too. If you feel that way, do leave some feedback. Um, whenever you're doing some course, like one of the frequently asked questions is, like how can we help in 28 minutes, right? The only thing that I would request you to do is wherever you are watching this video, leave some feedback. Either do a like or a subscribe, or like if you're doing a Udemy course, the best way to tell that you are liking the course is to leave a review. Go ahead, leave a review. That would really, really help us. Thanks a lot for your time. I'm sure it's a Tuesday morning or a late Monday night somewhere. I'm really, really glad that you spent the time in here. You dedicated your time to this. Thanks for that. And hopefully, I'll see you in another live stream very, very soon. Thanks a lot. And until I see you again, here's bye from Ranga at In 28 Minutes. Thank you.